G'day guys, Tours20 here and welcome back to Springfield. Very important episode today. We are going to be building Pressboard Estate, aka Evergreen Terrace. This is where the Simpsons live. This is where a lot of the characters live, actually. I didn't know that. I sort of just imagined a few of the characters live at Evergreen Terrace, but reading up on the wiki, checking out a couple of episodes, quite a lot of people live here, so I sort of expected this to be a pretty quick, easy build. Even thought this was going to be a short episode, but no, we are going to be keeping it all time-lapse. We build a lot, we detail a lot, and we're going to have to come back here to add in some more finer details, add in some more residents, and maybe even some custom houses. Like, let me know if you are an asset creator and you're keen to make some of these houses, because I do give it a pretty red hot go using procedural objects, and I do have a couple of custom houses, but I don't know. We'll have to just come back and revisit it. Maybe in a live stream, we'll have to figure out how to tackle this later on. But look, I'll talk a little bit about that later on in this episode. Two custom houses we're going to be plopping down today, and they are both built by Die Hard Hunter, who is one of the asset creators I got in touch with to kick off this series. So this is in fact probably one of the first assets that were created for this series. And it's funny because originally I got him to build the Simpsons house, and I was like, yeah, that'll be fine, that's all I really need. And then placing that down, I was like, you know what, we're going to need Flanders. I can't build the Simpsons and not build Flanders' house. And then it's, it just snowballs. You can see how this series has just snowballed into what it is now. And the reason why I sort of half completed Evergreen Terrace and then am saying that I would like to potentially come back here. And I say that because, I have this vision in my head of, the assets that I can use, and I jump onto the Steam Workshop and I go, oh yeah, I can use that house and I can use this one, and that'll be fine. It all kind of fits into place. But you'll see how much we do need custom assets and how much procedural objects is really just helping out this project, because without that, a lot of the things that I want to be building in this just wouldn't be possible. A lot of accuracies would just be lost. So yeah, it's just been amazing, all the people that have been getting in touch and helping out. So big thanks to all the people who have been helping, and Die Hard Hunter, man, thank you so much for these assets. They are very great, they look fantastic, and if you would like a copy of these assets, you can find them on the Steam Workshop, and don't forget to rate them up if you do end up using them in your city. So, a few things that I've learnt from this build. First up, Evergreen Terrace is the street that the Simpsons live on, and Pressboard Estate is the suburb, is the district that they live in. And Evergreen Terrace is, I know it's just one street, but apparently a lot of characters live on that one street. So of course we've got the Simpsons, we have Flanders, Edna Krabappel lives here. I'm going to be placing down her apartment block in this episode. Mo lives on Evergreen Terrace, Professor Fink lives on Evergreen Terrace. There's a whole bunch of characters. So it would be quite fun to come back and add in the extra characters that I don't end up placing down in this episode. I think that'd be fun to do in a live stream at some stage, but I don't know, we'll have to see what we come up with, whether it's one of those bits of detail that we can either skip or whether it's something that people are keen on. So let me know if you are keen to see us work around here again. And yeah, I have already placed down the Simpsons residents and Flanders, but I've just placed them down as placeholders. We're going to start working on, in more detail, this place that is right opposite them. And as far as I can tell, this is only from one episode, so I probably could have skipped it, but I don't know. It's one of those details that I thought was probably worth placing down. So of course, this is the residence of George Bush from that episode where he moves into this big mansion that's opposite the Simpsons house. And yeah, him and Homer just don't get along at all from the get-go, and they just get into an absolute feud. So I thought that this would be a pretty fun detail to put in. It's somewhat accurate. I'm going to use one of these buildings. I believe it's from the university's pack DLC that King Leonard made. It's yeah, I love these buildings. And it's pretty similar to a picture that I am taking reference from, but a little bit different. I have used procedural objects just to change a couple of things. Something that I wasn't able to achieve was the red doors, the red garage doors where Bart destroys Bush's memoirs. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty close. Even like the trees that are placed down and the type of fence and gates that are on the building too. So, that's pretty similar, and you will see some very big similarities from everything I do build in this episode. Like, I was trying to take inspiration from some particular pictures that I was finding, because again, like, this is one of those areas that, depending on which episode you're watching or what picture you're taking reference from, they just change quite a lot. Whether trees are there or trees are in another spot, or where driveways are, it's sort of changes quite a lot. But something that was very apparent was a lot of the houses pretty much stay exactly the same. They might change a little bit, but they don't just place random houses just for the hell of it. There seems to be like a consistent type of house in different areas. So that's where I'm sort of saying, like, how close do we get to this? We're going to build every single house in this neighborhood. I mean, we could get an asset creator to do that. I think that would be quite fun. But in the meantime, what I have done is I've used houses that are very similar from the base game. So the vanilla houses that are really similar to the style of architecture found around here, and the types of houses that Die Hard Hunter has built for this area too. And then I've also used procedural objects to copy the Simpsons house and Flanders. And then I've just tweaked them a little bit, and I'm using some trees around there just to mask a little bit of the similarities between them. But it's very common in these sort of neighborhoods to find houses of the same type of architecture. So, it's not totally obscure. It's not really crazy to see houses that might be similar to the Simpsons around here. What I've done to make the differences is I've just changed the color of the roof. I've changed the shape. I've made them a little bit bigger, and you might see some similarities, but it's like not crazy. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, do we just stick with procedural objects and try and make things a little bit different using the same technique that I'm doing right now? Or do we try and get a little bit more specific? It's this real snowball effect where you start working on one area and then you go, I might need to make this a little bit more detailed. I need to make this more detailed. And then all of a sudden you spend like a whole week building one episode, which I thought was going to take. I thought there was going to be a much shorter episode. We're just going to do lots of detailing, but nah. We do a pretty big job. So we're now starting to work on the more detailed portion of this episode, and that's just detailing up the Simpsons residence. So many references I could be taking, like so much happens at this house that, the possibility is endless. We could be putting in huge amounts of references. So I just tried to stick with a few, and maybe we add some extras later on down the track. So guys, I would like to invite you. What do you think? What else do we need to be placing around here? What else could we be taking ideas from? There's so much I probably couldn't put in here, but so much I think we probably could. So yeah, hit me up in the comments section if you've got some ideas. So far, in terms of detailing, I have placed down Santa's little helper. He is just sitting in a little doghouse, which, to be honest, now that I'm thinking about it, from memory, I don't think that doghouse ever properly got built.
What do you think, Lisa?
How's the dog supposed to get in?
Well, he just goes... Oh.
So I don't know, maybe we end up deleting that and just keep Santa's little helper, just little guy just sitting down there. I don't know, we'll see how we go. Now we are working on something that I thought was, so I found something on the workshop and it was like a little playhouse. And I was like, okay, cool. I can just stick that in the tree and that can be the tree house. And then you place down the building or you place down the prop and then you look at it and you think, you know what? It's not gonna cut it. I have to build the whole thing. So, this is one of those instances where I just thought it was gonna be a super quick, easy thing. And then I ended up building an entire treehouse, and I'm really glad I did because this looks great. I really love the way that it looks in this tree. But my God, what a time-consuming task. And I think the time-consuming part was like just trying to get every piece lined up, and I also, loading and loading the save game like multiple times, just trying different assets, was also really time consuming. So this took ages, but I'm really glad I ended up sticking to it. So yeah, of course, this is the treehouse. Definitely needed to place this because it's very, it's very important part of The Simpsons.
Homer, it's really coming down. Could you check on the boys?
They're fine.
The way that I ended up deciding to make it was I used procedural objects on this park bench. And I chose this park bench because the color of the wood was pretty similar to the type of wood found on the treehouse. It's also got these wooden planks that are really similar, and I was able to go through and just change little bits of it so that I could just piece this thing together and keep it pretty accurate. Like, it's pretty damn accurate, even to the plank. Like, I've used the same amount of planks for this thing. Not that anyone would ever notice, but you know, it is, all right? So just take my word for it. And because this is a treehouse, I was able to get away with a little bit of imperfections, and I was also trying to make a little bit of imperfections. So you'll actually notice that not all the pieces of wood are totally lined up. There are actually a lot of imperfections that I've just put in here so that it just looks like it is made by a kid. And I have left it quite open to adding extra stuff to it. There's so much we could add to this. We could even add stuff into the interior. And again, I think we might do this in a live stream. I think revisiting Evergreen Terrace in a live stream would be a lot of fun. So look forward to that in the future. I don't know when I'm going to do that, but it's coming up. We'll definitely get to it. And then the disappointing part about this whole thing was getting the tree to work, because the way that the treehouse sits within the tree, it is just sort of sitting amongst these leaves, but it's quite open. Whereas me trying to fit this with pre-existing trees within the game, there weren't a lot I could work with. So unfortunately, there is a tree trunk going through the center of the treehouse, and every time I reload the game, because the trees just randomly rotate, it just changes the way that it sits. So that is a little bit annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe I come back here and add some props instead of the tree. I don't know. We might just have to come back and revisit this and figure out a different way of dealing with it. But for the time being, I am pretty happy with how it looks, and I am very open to coming back and working on it later on. Something else I have just added into the backyard is Homer's hammock, where he spends a lot of his time, so that was an easy one to put down. Put the trampoline, it's a different shape.
Trampoline! Trampoline!
He said what now?
And of course, I decided to place down this little kiddie pool that, again, Homer spends a fair amount of time in. And I also placed down some beer bottles and some trash and just a little hidden puddle just below it, so you can just see a little bit of a water effect when you just sort of shift the camera around, but it's not too obvious, hopefully. Now another reference, I am putting in this air conditioner that Homer stole from Flanders from the heat wave. Couldn't find the actual clip from that actual episode, but yeah, that heat wave episode is one of my favorites.
Oh, rats.
Probably could have put in a whole bunch of pools around. Actually, that might be another thing we add in the live stream, is maybe Martin's pool that's really fancy and sits in one of the backyards. Although it did get destroyed, so I don't know, maybe we just don't do that. But you can see there's just so much we could place around Pressport Estate, and I couldn't possibly complete the entire thing in this episode. But what I did want to do in this episode was I wanted to really establish where it sits. I wanted to build the Simpsons and Flanders residence and get an idea of where that's going to fit in with the rest of the city. And then I will build towards the end of this episode, actually we're getting closer to that, but I will be building like the rest of the suburb and how it interacts with the landscape around it. A bit more of a quick build, and that way it gives us a little bit of time to, you know, work on the more detailed areas around here, and I'd like to revisit it and give it a little bit more of a finer touch. But yeah, I really do like the way this sits within the rest of the environment, so look forward to the cinematics. I think that's going to showcase it in a much better way. Now we're building Homer's barbecue. Yeah, this is a no-brainer. Had to include this.
That's one fine-looking barbecue pit. Why doesn't mine look like that?
It was pretty fun to build. I just got like a whole bunch of random props. this really great brick asset, this single brick asset just came in handy. So yeah, that was quite an easy thing just to place down. But I do think the positioning of it might be different. I just sort of put it around the side just because I needed to space out some of the things around here. So yeah, we might end up placing that a different location. But now just adding in a couple of driveways around the neighborhood just to give it a little bit more of a universal look, because we did have this for Flanders and the Simpsons, so I kind of felt like we needed to do it for all the rest of the neighbors around here too. Got the blue mailbox and the stain on the driveway, of course. And then Mr. Plow. I bet you didn't expect that, but Mr. Plow's been on the Steam Workshop for such a long time, and I had to include that Mr. Plow at the front. And there's also a Plow King asset, so that would be a fun touch to put like somewhere around one of the other houses for Barney, but I actually don't know where Barney lives, so maybe he lives in Pressport Estate or maybe lives somewhere else. I'm not really sure, but yeah, we can also place down the Plow King somewhere around here. I couldn't remember what house, so not house, I couldn't remember what car the Flanders drive, so I think it might be something similar to what I placed there, but maybe not. So we might have to go back and fix that up. But in terms of the Flanders residence, like not a huge amount I know about the backyard and front yard and stuff. So just placing down some different types of trees that I noticed from one reference picture, and that seems to be pretty consistent from other episodes too. The house next to the Simpsons on the right hand side, it's just known as a brown house, and a lot of different people and characters live there too. And it changes quite a lot, but the actual house is, I don't know, that might be significant enough to maybe need a custom build for that. So I might hit up some of the asset creators and see if they're interested. But for the time being, I've just used procedural objects and just I don't know, just change a couple of bits and pieces. And a lot of stuff I'm not showing you, like a lot of stuff I've cut out just because it's a little bit repetitive, but that brown house is actually modeled from Flanders, and I've just used procedural objects just to change it up a bit and figure out how it's going to look. So now we're starting to get to the part of the episode where we do less detailing and more just planning out where everything else is going to sit around here. So this is a neighborhood that is on the fringes of Springfield. I don't think too much more is going to sit up around here, but it does actually open up a whole bunch of opportunities for references and places that sit around the fringes of these areas. So if you've got some ideas of some things that could fit around here, then like hit me up, because I'm leaving it pretty open for ideas. The way that so in terms of like city planning and figuring out how this main road is going to interact with this area, I'm really quite happy with. And basically this main road that you can see that I've got going over the top of this highway, I really like it because it shows how this road is probably like one of the more older roads of Springfield, and hence the reason why it's become one of the more main roads. It's much wider, and it is actually one of the roads that leads to, it's actually one of the main roads that leads to the center of the city. So I knew that I needed this road to feel as if it's been established for quite a while. So I felt like it needed to not just end abruptly. So what it does, it actually continues going through that valley in the same direction as that highway, and I'll do like some farmland around there, like little bits and pieces, so that, you know, feels as if that road was established before the highway, and then the highway is now being introduced, and that highway is actually diverting traffic more parallel to the main center of the city, so it gives people an opportunity to either completely bypass Springfield or take an exit directly to the heart of the city, rather than going through all the suburbs. But then this main road still heads up towards the valley, so it's this really nice interaction. It feels very realistic. The really nice thing about the way that Springfield is actually growing and being built, it actually feels like one of my more realistic styles of cities, which is funny because it's actually based on a fictional city, so I don't know, maybe it's just a way of my style of playing has just changed quite a lot. But yeah, that's the way that I've built those roads, and I'm really happy with how they interact with the landscape. And speaking of interacting with the landscape, there's quite a big gradient from where the Simpsons house is and then where that main junction is that I've built up there. So You will notice that in the cinematics, it's really nice because you can see the suburbs creeping up the mountainsides, and then it just ends, and then you have forest. So I do really like that aspect of it. Now we are building just some suburbs, and like I said, this is still Pressport Estate, but I'm keeping it super simple. We are just placing down a lot of buildings within the same style of architecture style, but really just placing them just randomly and not really worried too much about placement of trees or the types of houses. We're trying to go for just a similar style of this whole area. I'll either be back around here, or it's just one of those areas that doesn't really matter how much work we put into it. But around the Simpsons residence, of course, more detail, trying to get things a little bit more nicer. But these sort of areas on the fringes, it's not a huge deal what we place around here. But again, like, hit me up, guys. I'm really always interested to hear what you guys have to say. Whether you have some ideas for around here, or whether you think I should definitely include somewhere, or you see something you're like, dude, you should totally add this little bit. I listen and read a lot of those comments, so please keep them coming. This area here is going to be like a bit of a commercial district, and I figured this would be a good area for Edna's apartment block. She lives in a very sad little apartment block, unfortunately for Edna, and I should say lived, because she apparently dies in this series, which I didn't actually know about until going back and watching previous episodes for this series. But yeah, really sad, and even the voice actor who played Edna passed away too. So yeah, it's really sad. It just shows the age of the show. It's actually just, I can't remember how long the show's been going for, but it's just a ridiculous amount of time. But anyway, I am getting sidetracked. This is Edna's place. I was trying to find something on the Steam Workshop that was similar, and I was like, I'll just use this building, who cares? And then of course, I care. I care so much about how these buildings look, even though it's just like one person who lives in this apartment block and no one else notices. I had to get it pretty similar. So I ended up using this vanilla building. It's the closest thing I could find. I used procedural objects and was fine-tuned it a little bit. And I think it turned out pretty alright. Like, it's different. It's not the best looking model, but it's pretty close. I think what really sells it are these red doors. I think that I definitely needed to include these red doors. And even the staircase and the balcony, they're pretty similar, but I don't know a huge amount that goes on at Edna's place. I know there's a few episodes, but I don't know. It's one of those more obscure things that I just had to make sure I got. The actual placement of the apartment, I do change. So this location that I chose first up, bit awkward, doesn't really work. But I do end up placing it in another spot, and I think it works a little bit better. Something I don't think I mentioned when I changed it, but I've actually changed where the school is. This is now closer to Pressport Estate. Before it was in East Springfield, but I changed it because I felt like it needed to be in a different area. And yeah, now it's a little bit closer to all these areas. It's closer to the Quicker Mart, it's closer to Simpsons residence, the cemetery. So yeah, it's just down the road. And Edna lives pretty close there too now. But yeah, there's a whole commercial block that's around here. It's one of the more recent builds of Springfield, I would imagine. So, you know, the type of architecture is, you know, some of the more modern types of buildings. You've got some fast foody type of joints, and you've got some office blocks. It's just, yeah, it's just a bit of a mix of commercial just to really serve the people who are around here. And I also figured, because we are like so close to the fringes of the city, and we do have this pretty wonky looking intersection that I created up here, we should probably build some sort of service station. So I just built one of these things. I don't really know. I can't really remember the name of this thing. I think it's called Quickie something. It's not the Quickie Mart, it's something else. We don't have these in Australia. Actually, a whole bunch of the assets that I have that are American assets, we don't have these brands in Australia. So like, sorry if I've made them look a bit strange, or I've used them in the wrong context. I have no idea. I'm just placing them down. So yeah, it's not really it's not intentional. I'm just placing these down just to fill in some gaps. Pretty low detail for that service station too. It's really just a place down, just so we can make it feel as if the context of that is in the right area. And then this sort of fringy area, I didn't really know what to do with it. So I figured This might be a good place for a park. We've got a little bit of nature walks around here too. And this road that snakes up into this valley, you can see it on the left corner. Again, don't really know what to do with it. So I just sort of placed a couple of random buildings up there. That's, I don't know, I feel like we could probably do some sort of fun Simpsons reference up there instead. So hit me up if you've got some ideas. But my friends, that is it. Thank you all so much for watching. Your support is very much appreciated. You guys are legends, so thank you so much. Speaking of legends, I do want to give a shout out to the patrons supporting the channel. Maxwell Hayes, Geordie, Charlie Zane, Tommy Hines Jr., Paul Wright, and Dre Hammond. Thank you guys so much for your support, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye!